2 o'clock, and I would like to welcome you to the special call meeting of the Glenn County Board of Commissioners for Tuesday, May 21, 2024. I have asked Commissioner Clark to lead us in an invocation and Commissioner Sweat to lead us in our pledge. If you'd stand with us, please.
Everyone would bow their head, please. Our most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, we just come here today. Lord, we just come here with our hearts open, our minds clear. Lord, I ask a protection over this meeting today as we listen to information that's brought to us, Lord, that we'll be a sponge to take this information in and use discernment and understanding of what's going on. And Lord, we just ask you to be with the presenters here today, to comfort them, guide them, direct them, Lord. And as always, remember our first responders who put it on the line each and every day, Lord. We just ask for a protective hedge of guardianship around them each and every day, Lord. And we just thank you for letting us live in a beautiful place that we're so blessed with the marsh and the sun and just wonderful rivers, Lord. We just thank you for that each and every day. And we ask all this in your precious name. Amen.
Amen.
Please face the flag, stand at attention, hand on heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item on our agenda today is to receive a presentation from Jennifer Cobb, Just Solutions Manager, Partnership for Southern Equity. There you are. If you want to come forward, Mr. Gentry, did you have any preamble to this?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, thank you. During our search for a strategic planning group to lead us in our process a little over a year ago, Commissioner Booker had recommended the Partnership for Southern Equity as one of those firms that does strategic planning. We ultimately settled on the Carl Vinson Institute of Government to assist us with our present strategic plan. Mr. Fallon wanted us to see if there are other areas that the Partnership for Southern Equity could assist us in changing that culture to really fit into with our strategic plan initiatives and our goals. After several meetings, this is actually the first time I got to meet Ms. Cobb in person myself, but we've had several interactions through MS Teams. We asked PSC to submit a proposal on recruitment, retention, and recognition as a means of developing a workforce that reflects the community we serve. So Ms. Cobb is here from PSC, and we'll introduce the proposal for your consideration. Ms. Cobb.
I am a manager at, yes,
Quincy, I can't hear. I can't hear Ms. Cobb.
okay. Can you hear me now? How's that? Yes. How about that? How about that? All right, thank you. Get me right. No problem, no problem. Again, my name is Jennifer Cobb. I'm a manager at the Partnership for Southern Equity, project manager, and we work with partners across the country, primarily in the Southeast, to support them in developing plans, strategies, policies, and practices that embed equity into the way that they do their work. So happy to share a bit about the Partnership for Southern Equity and talk a little bit about the proposal that we submitted at the end of last year. So the Partnership for Southern Equity, we advance policies and institutional actions that promote both racial equity and shared prosperity. So what does that look like and what does that mean? So we do our work in several issue areas that target equity. The first is just energy. This portfolio is really focused on ensuring kind of fair distribution of both the benefits and the burdens of energy in both consumption and production. Just Health focuses on health equity. Just Growth focuses on equitable development, ensuring that the most marginalized communities are really benefiting from the growth in their communities. Just Opportunity is around economic inclusion ensuring that all can participate in economic opportunities in their communities. Just Solutions, this is the group that I'm representing today. And then our organizing unit, they work in and with communities to help advance the community's agendas. Back one. So what do? We help partners decide on where and how to operationalize equity. What does that mean? So we really look at the data. What is the truth and what is the data telling us about the organization to really help uncover any inequities that exist, either in their services, both internally and externally. Using that data and really understanding where that organization is, we help pinpoint the policies and the practices that might help close those gaps and address those inequities that we might see. For example, those inequities might surface within the workforce. We might see that there are some groups of folks that are being promoted more than others. Why is that, right? We look at why is that happening and then help organizations really develop the strategies to close those gaps. We authentically engage community. As many of us in this room know, sometimes we're engaging communities, but residents don't really feel like they're cared for and cared about. And it's just about the way in which we go about really engaging people, really listening to what they're telling us and acting on the things that they are telling us that they need. So that's what we mean by authentically engaging. We build internal and external capacity, right? We all wish we had more capacity to do all of the things that we really want to do. That's just not realistic, right? We all have budgets, we all have limits. So we really look at the organizations to determine where are those areas where there are gaps. How do we fill those gaps? It might mean PSC is serving as a technical assistance or technical advisor carrying out some of that work, or it might be training staff to help build capacities in different skill areas. And then we advance inclusive community and economic development. So these are just a few of the partners that we worked with, both government, business, and nonprofit and foundations to help them operationalize equity in the work that they do. So to really think about the opportunity that we saw here in the conversations that we've had with Mr. Gentry and other members of the team, understanding this 2023, this 3-year Achieve It strategic plan that was developed, we were able to identify 2 of the 3 goals that we see PSC really being able to support. That first goal being cultivate a culture of service excellence. And then that goal number 3, develop a connected community where families live, work, and play. We know that these are amazing goals and amazing objectives, but what do we need to do to get there? There has to be some action plans with some accountability measures in place, some key performance indicators and metrics to help staff really understand if they're actually working towards those goals, if the things that they're putting in place are working, if they are actually achieving the things that they set out to achieve. So PSC's work and partnership would be to help staff develop action plans, develop those work plans with very specific measurable goals, indicators and metrics, all based around best practices to help them achieve those overarching goals. So within those 2 goals that we identified, there are some target areas. First being around staff diversity, ensuring that there's diversity amongst leadership and staff representation, that staff feel satisfied with their work, they feel like they're being recognized, and they want to stay on as staff in the county. Also looking at those recruitment strategies to make sure that we're targeting those kind of gaps in what we're seeing. So we were able to look at some of the data that was provided to us from a study that I believe UGA performed last year, all around the staff data in the county. And so through that data, we're able to tell, where are those areas that we might want to fill in terms of diversity measures, right? And what are the strategies that we can implement to help close those gaps and recruit the talent that we want to see? How do we train them? And how do we retain them? The public perception of staff diversity. This is a very interesting area. We know that there is reality and there's perception, and there's two different things. But perception is often, really, really important when you're thinking about the community and what the community believes to be true about an organization. So in this target area, we would really be looking at what does the data tell us and help the county tell that story about what's happening. Address any gaps that exist, right? No organization is perfect, so this is an opportunity to say, here's what the data is telling us, here's where we want to go, and here's the plan of how we get there. When we talked earlier about authentically engaging community, that's being transparent about where you are, where you want to be, and what you're actually going to be doing to get there. Grounding and operationalizing equity. So understanding that there's kind of some shared values that go along with equity. What do we have to believe to put some of these action steps and action plans into place? What are the policies and the practices and services that exist currently that aren't producing equitable outcomes, and how can we get there? And then evaluation, right? We know that, we can put in great strategies all day, but how do we know that we're actually achieving our goals? How do we hold folks accountable to those action plans and to those strategies? So making sure that there are some good measurement practices in place. So our proposed scope of work is happening in 3 phases. That first phase is really kind of setting that baseline, understanding what is happening in the county. What is the data telling us that exists? We know that there's a recent comp plan. There was a lot of community engagement that occurred with that comp plan. What is the community saying in those surveys? There was that recent UGA study. And so there's been quite a bit of kind of discovery finding over the last year and a half. So we want to use the existing data to try to help tell the story so we can understand what's happening. We want to review existing plans and recruitment strategies, specifically within the HR team. What are they doing? What's working? What's not working? Let's review the existing diversity, equity, inclusion training that we know already exists with staff. What are staff learning? Are they feeling like they're walking away being able to be active participants in community, both internal and external, with an equity in mind? We will conduct some stakeholder interviews with internal stakeholders to get some perspectives from a broad range of employees. And through that, we'll be able to identify the gaps and opportunities and report the findings. Phase 2 is really the meat and potatoes. This is really digging in, working with a group of select staff members to build those action plans and work plans. We believe that the people who are closest to the problem are also closest to the solution. So we will work with staff to help develop those work plans to ensure that they are feasible, they're realistic for their day-to-day activities. They fit in with the existing systems and can align with kind of the way that they already do their work. In this second phase, we would also conduct some additional discovery with community if there are any gaps that exist from understanding really the aspirations and priorities, particularly around those perceptions that community may have about Glenn County. And then that third phase is around the recommendations and the implementation. So now that we've developed those work plans, we've developed the specific strategies that are based on best practices, what does it look like to put those into place? If there are any other gaps that didn't really come out of the action plans, right? So the action plans are very focused on what staff are doing to help achieve those objectives and those goals. But there may be some areas that we discovered that don't really fall in line with those things, right? What are the additional kind of staff capacity areas? Where are the opportunities to train staff to be prepared to implement those work plans effectively and successfully? So our final report will give some additional recommendations around potential policies or programs or initiatives that might be put into place beyond the engagement with the Partnership for Southern Equity. And then this final objective is an optional objective, which is some additional technical assistance and advisement as staff are actually implementing those plans over time. So it could be anywhere from 3 to 6 months where we are working alongside staff, supporting them with their evaluation measures, if there's additional community engagement needed, any annual assessments that are happening and supporting what those look like to ensure that they incorporate this new strategic plan and the new work plans and action plans. So overall, there are a few deliverables. The discovery report in phase 1 that will outline the key findings from our initial discovery. Phase 2, there will be an additional discovery report if there are any additional gaps that were discovered in our kind of community engagement. And our action plan, which is that comprehensive roadmap that is really targeted to those objectives and goals. And then phase 3 is that final key recommendation report. So that is all I have for you in terms of our presentation, and I am opening the floor for questions now, if that's okay.
Commissioners, any questions?
Yeah, who provides you with this data that you're saying you need?
So we would partner with the county to get that data. So we have been fortunate enough to already have some really great conversations with the city manager and county manager and assistant county manager to look at the data that was provided through the recent UGA staff study. So that was really great in being able to understand the existing kind of profile and makeup of the staff. If there are any gaps, we'll partner with the assistant county manager and kind of the key contacts that will work with us on the project. Typically, those departments that will be looking for that data are human resources, is a key partner in accessing that data. Also, GIS is another tool that we would access to get additional data. And then for city planning or community development departments to understand any community engagement surveying that's happened. And so that is where we'll get that data.
How much does this cost?
So there's kind of 2 ranges for the project. The first one is $144,000, and that $144,000, and so that includes phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3, which is the discovery, the development of the action plans, and then that final key recommendations report. And then the second option is $198,000, and this also includes that longer range technical assistance, which we would provide anywhere from 20 to 25 hours of additional support each month over the course of 3 to 6 months to staff as they need it, right? So if there are teams that are struggling with implementing their action plans, if they're wanting to kind of whatever they need to really ensure that they're prepared to implement those action plans. So it could be training, it could be coaching, it could be helping them build systems to align the work that we've done with their day-to-day processes.
Mr. County Manager, are we budgeted for this?
Well, that's what this is a for consideration for the budget for next year. So that's the reason why
Not this year, but next year.
not for this fiscal year. It will be for FY25. Yes, sir. And just as she said, phase 1 it could be split between phase 1 and 2, so we could divide it up even over the course of 2 budget years as well.
Well, it sounds to me that your services that you provide are for troubled departments, that y'all come in and you do your analysis and things such as that. I sit chairman on the HR, and I'm very proud of our HR department and our leadership there, and we don't have any lawsuits pending against us, do we, in reference to what she's talking about? What was it, economic inclusions? I don't feel that we're in any trouble that needs these services at this time. But and I sit on HR, so I'm curious about this.
Yeah, and And so I want to say our work is not necessarily for troubled departments or troubled organizations. We work with organizations across sectors to support them in identifying ways that they can grow. There's always areas and ways for teams to grow, especially when you're thinking about equity and inclusion. There's always ways to grow. This is, I think, a fairly new conversation, this conversation about equity and diversity and inclusion and what that looks like. And so there are kind of emerging best practices and emerging work that's happening across the country. And our goal is to help organizations that may be thriving, right, and really successful in their work, but there are always ways to do it better, specifically in taking that equity lens, thinking about historical marginalization of communities. It's important to us that we're working with teams to look at the ways that you're doing your work well, but also look at the ways that you could be doing it even better by infusing equity and inclusion into the way that you're doing your work.
And let me say that I asked the staff to look at this because we are a pretty strong organization. And if we're going to stay that way, then these are the type of things that we're going to have to look at. You don't have to believe me, but if you listen to the two reports that the president of the chamber gave, I believe last year, about the labor market, it is diverse and growing more diverse every day. And if you talk to business folk across this county, you don't have to go any further than this county, then they're trying to get people, some are just trying to get some bodies, but most people want the most qualified folk that they can get. And if we're going to be competitive, then we need to make sure that we are prepared for that in recruitment, and that we're known for giving everybody an opportunity. That's not always reflected when you look at our labor force. Don't have to believe me, but we won't be here if we don't make decisions like this now going forward, I believe. Again, and we need to try to find that report that the chamber gave. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, and Ms. Cobb, I appreciate you coming down here all the way from the big city of Atlanta and everything. And I'm quite sure you probably looked at us from like 30,000 feet, you know, like an overview, and talking with the staff. Is there an issue in Glenn County? And the reason, and let me caveat that, I don't see an issue. I was here recently for our picnic last year and didn't attend this year. And our makeup of our staff is a strong, qualified staff. And they're fairly diverse. I come from, I'm in the trucking business. And my staff is very diverse. And we didn't need DEI to be a diversified staff. We look at the qualifications, and y'all do as well. I just wonder if we even have an issue. We got a strong team, as Commissioner Tossin mentioned, being on the pension. We have a uniquely strong, diversified staff from the top to the bottom. I think their qualifications, their knowledge of the job is very important, and that's what I look at. Someone calling customer service, they're looking for answers. You know, they want that person to have a knowledge. Hey, this is what I've got. My ditch is full. I need you to send me to whatever. And, and that's what I expect from where I work. Diversity is a part of way of life. DEI is part of it, and it's important. And you've got to have a good blend of the diversity, equity, and equality with qualified, knowledgeable people coming into your workforce. And I'll circle back around. I think our staff here in Glenn County, the HR department, does a fantastic job, and I would like to see more research done. Let's see if we have an issue here. Commissioner Booker brings up a great point. Everybody has a staffing issue. I have one with where I'm at. I need about 10 truck drivers right now. That's across the board and everything. But again, I appreciate your presentation, and I just like the county as a whole to look inside and let's see before we go out and contract a organization to come in here and see if we really need to do something.
Well, let me say this, that if Dwayne is not in a room in a staff meeting, the departments, he's not even a department head, he's a manager. We have no diversity in our department heads. That's a glaring issue. It may not be for you all, but you cannot recruit others in that department if people don't see that there's an opportunity to get there. Now that's recruitment. And even retention. Right now, we have some great people, you're right. But they don't have to stay here now. They can go to other places where they have an opportunity when they see department heads that look like them, at least one, and they'll go to that organization. Again, you don't have to believe me, but we won't be here when we have to deal with the consequence of this, not based on my research, but based on the Chamber's research. That's just one that I know of. I was surprised myself at both of those reports. So, and if I remember correctly, even years ago at my orientation as for a commissioner at UGA, they talked about the same thing. It's not that we are in so much trouble, it's the fact that we are strong. And then for us to stay there going forward, we have to look at what the future is going to bring us. The labor market is getting more and more diverse every day. And so if we're not, we don't have to, we can kind of keep doing what we're doing. But if we keep having all the department heads that is no diversity in that, and that is not a slight on any of the department heads that we have now. They all, I believe, are great, and they went through a process and they were selected. But the future, they're not going to, we just lost one. So now what? That is going to keep happening, not just with department heads, but other upline supervisors that are good. There are tons of people that are coming up that are good. And those people are going to get opportunities in places where they feel like they can advance. That's the purpose of this. So if you all want to take it as, we want to wait until we're sued, that's just not a good idea. And so I thought this would be us getting ahead of things because we are strong.
And if I may add, the Partnership for Southern Equity is based in Atlanta, but we have done work in Brunswick and Glenn County for several years, partnering with organizations like Communities First, partnering with organizations like the Glenn Environmental Coalition, and in coastal Georgia. So we do have some staff that live here in Brunswick and do work with the community, in the community around advancing their agendas, particularly those communities that are most marginalized. So we have kind of some anecdotal data that we've been able to collect over the past 6 years and working in this county and in this community directly with residents and with those organizations that are serving residents. We've been able to collect look at some of that data that Mr. Gentry shared with us late last year to kind of share a partial picture of what's happening, but that discovery phase that we do will really help us kind of see the full picture and pinpoint those areas and opportunities for growth.
That was going to be my next question. Y'all have done work here locally. And thank you for naming those organizations. I appreciate that.
I was gonna ask though, have you contracted with other municipalities and counties around Georgia?
In Georgia, yes.
name some?
Sure. So DeKalb County, which is Metro Atlanta.
You had a listing up there.
I did. Yeah, I can go back to that list. So these are some of the organizations that we've worked with DeKalb County. We've had a couple contracts with DeKalb County, the City of Atlanta, the City of East Point, Lafayette, which is in Louisiana, Consolidated Government, HUD, which is federal organization, of course, nonprofits, foundations as well.
But you didn't list the local people on your list there.
We didn't. So our work happens in a couple of ways. We do contracting work, consulting work, which is the area that I represent, but we also do community work at no cost to communities. So much of that work that I talked about that we've done with Glen Environmental Coalition, which now there is a contract in place, but much of that work is funded through foundations like the Sapelo Foundation to work directly with communities themselves. So communities aren't having to pay us to come in and do this work. We're able to subsidize that work with residents and with nonprofit organizations with some other funding.
Thank you.
One question. Diversity and inclusion are fresh words in the world place today. And how do you define each of those terms? What represents diversity?
Yeah.
What does that sum up to as a diversity?
Sure. So diversity is that the environment or the organization is representative of the people that are being served. That there are folks from different backgrounds, way of life that can all learn from each other. And equity is really ensuring that all people have access to opportunities and for shared prosperity.
I appreciate it. I mean, I'm not in favor of this strategy. I'm from the old school. I revolve around three words here: performance, recruiting individuals that can perform the jobs, that are motivated and excellent, and have the education and want to increase that education. And that's what, for me, that I've been through a big change with this organization in Glenn County. And I'm just reiterated that the people you want to hire, regardless of any diversity or inclusion, those attributes that I look for are the desire to perform, to be a top performer. And that's across any race, color, gene, whatever. Same, that they're motivated to come in here and motivated to be a part of the team. And education, that's furthering more than what they've got to be inside an organization. That's what we try to provide for our people, is the opportunities for that. So I just think we're using the wrong words in the wrong direction. Any strong business, any strong government is based on performance, motivation, and education with the people that they have, regardless of race, creed, or anything like that. So that's what I encourage our county to always, and I think we're doing that with our leadership team and the way that our commission has pursued to get leadership and raise the bar in pay and in standards and encouragement. But if you want to work for Glenn County, we're looking for you to be motivated to perform, have your education, and go up in the ranks. That's the theology I like to see. If we're on that, that's what I want to continue on.
We believe in that too. We believe in that too, absolutely.
I think diversity and inclusion in modern day terms not a balanced diversity, whatever that's defined, and inclusion. Businesses don't function that way like they should.
Well,
That should be performance and motivation and education inside it, and leadership, building leaders.
I don't think that's accurate, Commissioner Fendi, because if you look at corporations, they have these diversity inclusion officers, and they pay them very well. Because
I'm not
they are,
answering for
because,
corporations, I'm just answering
Well,
for
but-
myself
but-
as a commissioner
but,
of Glenn
but,
County.
but, folk, like you say, you from the old school, the thinking is that the more government works like business, the better we'll be. So, I don't agree with that personally, because government has a different function. But some attributes of business are very good for the government to emulate. But these corporations, and we all look at businessmen who are successful and women now, that they are smart, they know because they're making money or whatever. These folk are the ones that are doing diversity and inclusion because it works. It makes them money, and it makes their business better. My point was that we are a strong organization. If we plan to be that in the future, this is what we should be looking at.
That's
But-
fair enough.
I'd like to thank Ms. Cobb for your presentation today. Thank you for joining us for the presentation, and this is something that will be discussed for some time. So, thank you again.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So, item number 2 today is to receive a presentation from Sharon Morgan, Director of WorkSource Coastal. And Ms. Vakulich will introduce for us today.
Thank you, Quincy. Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Closer to the mic.
I'm sorry?
Mike.
I'm so short. I'm Rhonda Vakulich, County Clerk. As you know, the Board of Commissioners makes several appointments each year to both internal and external boards and committees. Today, we have Ms. Sharon Morgan, Executive Director of Coastal WorkSource, to tell you a little bit about her organization and the services that it provides for Glenn County.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Morgan.
Welcome.
I probably have to get a little closer. I get a little louder as I get excited about what it is that I do, so I may have to back up from the mic in a little bit. But good to see you, Chairman Neal. Again, Commissioner Booker, good to see you. I have heard that you wanted to hear more about this through the people who are assigned to work in this area. So I'm going to get started. You all can ask me questions throughout my presentation because it is a lot of information. I'm glad to be invited, but the cool thing would be to be invited back. So I'm not going to be able to tell you everything about us today, but I'm going to hit some of the high points. So again, my name is Sharon Morgan. I am the Executive Director at WorkSource Coastal. Last month marked 18 years for me, and I'm just not tired yet. I get up every day excited about what I do. I understand that you need truckers. I understand that we need a lot of help as it pertains to staffing in this area. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and tell you a little bit about the funding that we receive. The dollars that we receive in this area comes from the U.S. Department of Labor, Education, and Training Administration. It comes to this region in which covers 10 counties. We have a consortium agreement between the chairman that was signed back in 2013. Prior to that, that document was signed, I think, in 2006. So about every 10 years, we receive these funds and they are reauthorized by the U.S. Department of Labor, and we pretty much get our marching orders as to how they want those funds spent. I think it was Commissioner Clark or someone that said that we need to be competitive, and that's what those dollars are for. They are sent to us in this region to make sure we are training people in what we call high-demand occupations. Ms. Rhonda gave you a bag. Inside that bag is, I think I put it on the left-hand side, is a document that is titled High Demand Careers. And before you ask, we get those numbers from the Department of Labor. Also from the Labor Bureau of Statistics, as well as someone that we contract with by the name of Lightcast, once upon a time known as MZ. So that's where we pull all our labor market data from. It lets us know who's looking for work. And you may ask, how do we know who's looking for work? Anyone that puts in an unemployment claim, we assume they're looking for work, right? So that's where we get our data from. Also, those individuals that put in an unemployment claim, it is also tracked what their job was. So that's how we know what's in demand. So if we have truckers being laid off, we know that that's a demand. If we have Lockheed Martin being laid off, we know what we're looking for. So that's how we're able to come up with those numbers. Okay, so again, under the act that we are under now, which is called the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, this act over the last 18 years, while I've been with WorkSource Coastal, has given us an opportunity to be innovative, trying to figure out what works for what county, because no county is the same. So that allows us a little innovation to be creative, but within the federal guidelines as well as the state guidelines. These are federal dollars, so we just can't be out there doing what we want to do. First things first, we have got to upskill our workforce. And what you say is true. They have to come in and be willing to work. So that's where we come in. So as I go on, I'm not going to read to you because you guys do this all the time. Ms. Rhonda has the PowerPoint, so I'm just going to hit some of the highlights because I was told all I have is 15 minutes. So simply stated, these funds gives us the opportunity to design and also help job seekers access employment, education, training, and support service to succeed in the labor market. We do this through work-based learning, individualized career services, and providing funding for training. First things first, we don't want to invest in anyone that is not ready. So when they come into our job center, and we will get to that in a few moments, when they come into the job center, they receive an assessment. You can't say that I want to be a truck driver and then you hate driving. So we need to know that up front before we invest, before we spend $1. Because if Commissioner Neal wants to know how many people we've trained and what occupations they've been trained in, I need to be able to tell him. And I need to be able to tell him that they're now working. You don't want to hear that we've invested these dollars, put them through training, and they're not working. The end-all, be-all is to get trained and to go to work to earn a self-sustaining wage. Another thing that we keep up with in our office is what we call a living wage. And I want to let you know that the living wage for Glenn County is $21.16. That's for a family of one. So you should be making $21.16 in order to be what we call self-sufficient in Glenn County and earning a living wage. Can that be done? Yes, it can. Yes.
You said that's for a family of one.
That's a family of one.
Assuming one adult.
One adult.
That's if somebody's employing the child labor
Right.
under the table. But, so what about a family of three?
I'm not sure. I can't quote you, but I can tell you the website.
But it's more than $21 an hour.
It's more than $21 an hour. But if you want to look it up, the name of the site is Living Wages.
And what's, go ahead, I'm sorry.
livingwages.mit.eud. And you can look up any state and any county from that website, and it will tell you the family size.
What is in a living wage? What does that mean?
In a living wage, you should be able to take care of what you need, not want. Your necessities, your housing, being able to pay for what it comes with owning a home, an apartment, a car, getting to work. So basically taking care of your necessities. We all like to do other things, but in Glenn County, $21.16 will get you what you need, according to this site.
So that doesn't include, a vacation?
It does not include a vacation. You may have to do a little overtime, but it does not include vacation. No, it doesn't. Okay. So in our region, we're known as Region 12, Area 19. So the WorkSource Coastal Region consists of 10 counties, as you see here. We do work in Bryan, Bullock, Camden, Chatham, Effingham, Glenn, Liberty, Long, McIntosh, and Stribon. So it takes me about 2 hours to get from Stribon to Camden, and I have done it in one day. It all depends on what I have to do. So again, that's what I sign up for, so I travel. We have a total of 7 job centers, and you can see where the pin is. That's where the job centers exist. So I see you all are probably looking to see if Glenn has a job center. Yes, you sure do. Our 10 counties are divided into what we call 4 sub-regions. I think I started with Coastal in 2006. Prior to me getting there in 2004, they too did a study of the workforce area, and they realized that we needed to be subdivided as far as coverage, so that you all will have someone working in your area solely for the sub-region. Like I said, it takes 2 hours, so it would take much longer to try to serve 10 counties on a daily basis. So that's where the job centers come into place, and also the sub-regions. This is where the job center is located on 1600 Union Street. We have been at that facility since, I believe, 2010. Ms. Rhonda has visited the job center. So if you want any questions quickly, you probably can ask her, but you're welcome to visit anytime. That site is open Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So what do we do with our training dollars? We train individuals, again, in what we call high-demand occupations. So we do invest in our individuals in this area. We've trained a whole lot of nurses at the College of Coastal Georgia, and we also have individuals that come through our program that attend the local technical college. Those individuals that are eligible for our program can receive up to $12,000 in 2 years. Normally that is split in half. You get $6,000 one year and you get the other $6,000 the following year. However, we've had individuals that have gone through training programs such as your local union here that is more than $12,000 in 1 year. So in that case, they receive all of their money in the first year. And again, it's a little over $12,000, but we have individuals that come through the program and may go to CDL school that may cost them about $3,000. So they're not spending their whole $12,000, so we can spend that money on someone else. So we don't stop someone from coming to training because they have less funds. We go ahead and we pay whatever it is to make sure that we are getting them skilled up in the area of high demand. Those funds allow us to pay for their tuition and their fees, their books, any certification exams, and uniforms while they are in clinical or while they're in on the shop floor in welding. We pay for their hood, we pay for their welding equipment, anything they need. In our region, again, we have currently 18 workforce areas throughout the state of Georgia, and you know we have 159 counties. We had Macon-Bibb to just merge with Middle Georgia. So if you look at our map, it's a little off right now, but we have remained a coastal region for quite some time. We were 9 counties. Then they gave us Stribon in 2016. But our focus in the coastal region is healthcare, hospitality, transportation, warehousing, logistics, manufacturing, and construction. Do I cover it, or am I missing something?
That gets us a good start.
That gets us a good start. All right. On our demand list, we list careers that are stable, where there's an opportunity to grow, to get promoted, projected long-term growth, and annual job openings. So we have what we call business services representatives, who I will not get into today, but I'm going to mention just a little bit about them. We get this information from Georgia Department of Labor. There's a lag in that information. So we have business service representatives that are on the ground, that are talking to businesses, and they know what the needs are. So they hear that information at chamber events. They are connected to economic development authorities, so they understand what's really going on the ground. So if we pull this information and it doesn't match with what's going on the ground, we go ahead and we add it to the list because we know it's in demand. We don't have to wait 6 months from the Department of Labor to tell us that we need truck drivers. We see it every day because the growth is here. So just know that we are adding to the list based on some of the work that the business services reps are doing. So that's why I asked the question, do you see that it is covered? So these are the actual careers. So anything in healthcare, we will cover. Anything in hospitality, we will cover. Anything in construction, we will cover. So I'm not just saying you must be a carpenter. No, you can be on a construction site doing almost anything that you need to be certified in, and we can cover it. Any questions so far?
I have a sort of separate question, which is one of the reasons I wanted to hear from
Yes, sir.
this organization. What are we doing for summer jobs for youth? Because, I understand this, but if we're not preparing, giving them a groundwork for helping their parents to instill a work ethic in them by having a summer job, I'm pretty sure most everybody up here can talk about what they learned from that summer job and how many of us who came out of working families, it helped us to buy school clothes and other things, and sometimes food. What are we doing to impact that?
Okay. As far as summer jobs are concerned, and one thing about me, I'm going to bring you the truth, okay? We receive funding for what we call adult individuals that's 18 years or older. We receive funds for dislocated workers. Those are individuals that have been laid off from their job due to no fault of their own, or they are veteran, or they're transitioning military, or they're a spouse that have been following their spouse around their entire military career, and now I don't have any skills because I've been raising the children, but now I want to go back to work. So we utilize our dislocated worker funds for that. As for our youth, we utilize those funds for work experience. They can receive tutorial services, leadership skills, life skills. We do all of that with our youth. But one thing I will say about those funds for youth, they have been dwindling. For the last 5 years, they've been dwindling. So our funds that are given to the team here, they utilize those funds for the summer program. What we do, we illuminate that program in the summer months, but we offer that service year-round. We talk about it more in the summer for the obvious reasons. We want kids to be doing the right thing. So we offer that in the summer. We advertise it just a little more so that parents can know you don't have to leave your child at home alone. We can put them to work. But those funds only go but so far. And yes, they are dwindling. And I say all of that to say this: they utilize those funds year-round. So when the summer comes, they have what they have. So if we don't have additional funds to give them, we don't have it. So I say all that to say this: the huge summer programs, as we once knew it, it's not happening on that level. But they will have summer jobs. It won't be that many, but they will have summer jobs.
Yeah, I think, because I ran the program for several years. I think this contributes to our gang problem. I really do. Because when Judge Woods came to speak to us at our retreat a few years ago, she said that she interviews these guys, the gang members, before she sentences them. Most of them have never had a job,
Right.
and most of them have never gotten past the 10th grade. So, and I know that we had a lot of success with young people during our tenure of running these programs in McIntosh, Lynn, and Camden. I've seen a number of these young people go on to go to college, and they're now teachers playing other leadership roles here. But, I mean, if the funds, when you say that they're going down, to me, they're probably non-existent.
They exist, but as a commissioner, that's where you can help us. So when you go to the state, you can have that conversation. If you have the opportunity to go on Capitol Hill, you can have that conversation. The fortunate thing for us, this is formula funds. We don't have to write a grant. We automatically get it every year. So that in itself is a blessing. We don't have to worry about writing grants because it is grant writing season. And we don't have to worry about that.
So
But what we
how
have
much
to do is
funding-
champion for more money.
How much funding do you all receive?
For this year, it was cut again. Just last night, I received those numbers, and it is a little over $800,000.
For the
Now,
entire state?
that's for the entire 10-county region.
Okay.
So again, we have 4 sub-regions. So we have to divide that among those 4 sub-regions, right? So with that, out of that, they have to pay salary. They have to pay for some of the upkeep of the building, not all of it, but there is overhead costs. So with all of that, we have funds left for summer employment and year-round employment for youth, but it's not how it used to be.
So that's for the entire program?
That's for the
adult?
entire youth program. Does not include the adult and
No.
dislocated worker. That is just the youth. We get 3 funding streams every year to train individuals. And then we get another pot of money called rapid response money to help businesses, hopefully to avert layoff and to assist with layoff, once they lay off, getting those people back to work.
Do you know how much was spent here in Glenn County?
I could give you those numbers, how much was spent in Glenn County.
Yes, I would like to know and certainly share it with
Yes,
the other commissioners.
yes.
Is all 3 revenue streams 800,000 each?
No. Let me take that back. It was 800,000 plus for adult funds. That's anyone that's 18 years or older. It was a little over $1 million for youth, again, being divided by those 4 sub-regions. And we received $1.9 million in dislocated worker money. And your dislocated worker money is for those that are unemployed and underemployed. So those individuals that are not making the $21.16, if they're working, say for instance in hospitality, and they may feel, well, this is not getting it. I want to be a truck driver. I want to help Commissioner Clark out. They can go to work, and we can pay for their training, long as they're making less than the $21.16, or less than what the amount is for their family size. So they have to be committed to working during the day and maybe going to school at night, or getting off at 3 o'clock and going to training. You just have to have the mindset to get it done, and we're willing to invest.
Well, and helping them to develop that work ethic, I mean, it's easy for some of us to say, well, they gotta want it, depending on the environment they've been living in does impact them, just like our environment impacted now. It's not an excuse, but it is a reason.
Well, when I say gotta want it, they gotta be willing to complete the class, willing to complete the training.
Well, I guess that's what I'm going back to, the work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
And young people learning that.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is something that is taught. It's not something that always comes naturally out of wanting something.
Mm-hmm.
But you said 800,000 split 4 ways, right? And so what is that, about 200,000 per area then?
A little over 200 per area. Mm-hmm. And what we do, we pay attention to, we track the number of people that are coming in and wanting training, and we are able to take some of our dislocated worker money and convert it to adult. So if we see that we need to put more money in a sub-region, we do that from our dislocated worker dollars.
Well, I'm
But
talking
what
about
we
the
get.
youth. I'm talking about the youth, right?
For the youth, we have no way of transferring funds, so what we get is what we get.
Okay. All right. The 800 is for the adult, but how much was for the youth?
A little over $1 million.
Okay. So what that is about 250.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And see,
So
my
you have to pay
budget- my budget
salaries.
for the 3 counties was, for the summer
Mhm.
was 340. Back,
That was then.
yeah. And,
that was
and
the-
most of that went to the students.
Mhm.
And,
Well, you have to have people to work with the students, so we gotta pull salary out of that.
right. We paid salaries out of that.
Mhm.
And but we also helped a lot of nonprofits because that's who we employed them with. So they got a lot of free help, and it really helped the community a lot. So, but anyway.
Well, they're gonna do that again this summer, but it will not be the huge summer program that we're used to because we just don't have it. And if I wish, we could transfer funds from dislocated worker to youth. To be honest with you, I know I'm over my 15 minutes, but this act is going to be reauthorized, and we're waiting to see. But we were able to submit public comment as to what we would like to see in the act that's coming, and we asked that we be able to transfer between funding streams, not
You
just,
say this is federal dollars?
these are federal dollars.
All right.
Yes, they are, from the U.S. Department of Labor, Employment and Training Administration. So here are the categories in which we serve the individuals. So again, adults, ages 18 and older, dislocated worker, same thing. Out-of-school youth, 16 to 24, that are not attending school, and they have an employment barrier. So that includes your kids that are in foster care, those that are justice involved, those that may be pregnant or parenting, just any barrier we may think that may stop them from employment. And again, as part of this program, if they receive a work experience, they receive training in what we call soft skills and hard skills, 20 hours of it before they are placed with an organization. So we have to let them know you have to be ready to go to work. Getting up in the morning looking for your clothes might feel good, but I don't know if that's a good idea. You know, you don't get an opportunity to make a first impression a second time. So you have to show up and be ready. So we give them that training because we realize all of them don't have that. So we do that before we place them. That is required. I'm sorry.
I'm just being facetious.
What did you say,
I
sir?
said they didn't learn it when they were young.
Right, some of us didn't. Some of us didn't. But most importantly, we have to recognize that and help them. Inside the center, you can receive basic services. Ms. Rhonda went over, visited. We have computers in there. You're able to utilize them, the printers, the scanners, free of charge. You do not have to be a part of the program to go in and utilize these computers. During the pandemic, we had a lot of people who were applying for
unemployment and also applying for partial unemployment. We realize in some of these areas, the broadband width is just not as good as we would like it to be. So we had a lot of people coming into the job center filing their unemployment. Even though the Department of Labor is not in that building, we were still open to receive those customers. Again, we can assist them with resume writing, or actually revising their resume. It doesn't take very long. We have software in which we can give them a resume in less than 30 minutes. So please spread the word for anyone that you know that may be looking for these services to come visit us. So with those basic services, we offer career services. If we see after a while they've been looking for work and it's just not working out for them, the next phase will be training for them. So we will sit down with them and we will give them that assessment that I talked about to make sure that what they think they want to do will be a good fit. Because it's not a good thing to say, I want to be a truck driver, and then you find out that regionally you might not be home every night. A lot of people don't know the definition of that. And then when they get the job and they find out regional mean I won't be home every night, then there's a problem. So those are the conversations we have. I won't be able to get into it right now, but we offer services also to businesses of small, medium, and large size. One business of large size that we have worked with in this area is Paul Marine, helping them identify welders. They have a very specific technique for their welders. It was one of the challenging ones, but they were able to identify people that were able to weld the way that they needed. Right now, I can't think of the other company, but we were here for 2 days. They laid off. It was the business that caught fire. Was it a paper mill? Okay, yes. We assisted them as well. One thing we do, we make sure those that are getting laid off have a resume so that they can look for work on their own, or we can help them look for work and make that connection. There was a gentleman there that had been working there for 50 years. He didn't know anything about applying for a job online. So that was the reason why we were there for 2 days. We made sure that those individuals that wanted to apply had the means to apply. Rather, it was just simply knowing how. A lot of us know what we want to do, but we don't know how to do it. So this gentleman was there for 50 years. He filled out a paper application. So that's not a good feeling at all. You've been going to this job for 50 years, and now all of a sudden, I'm not working.
He didn't have retirement?
He had retirement, but a lot of you don't want to go home. I don't know why you don't want to go home, but this gentleman wanted to work. He wanted to work, so we made sure we helped him with that. In another county, we had a gentleman, he had been with the company a little over 30 years at the age of 70, good shape, didn't want to go home, and he was a welder. And we were able to connect him with the technical college, and he's a welding instructor. So that's what we do. We try to connect talent to opportunity, just like our slogan says. So I also want to share with you, some of our community partners, but from the area of Glenn County, we have Ms. Mary Gohagan, who is the director of Brunswick Job Corps, and you also appointed Jay Clemens, who is the welding instructor at Local Union 188. And we also have Jeff Clark, who is not a board member, but he makes sure that he is at our youth committee meetings so that he can bring information back to Glenn County. He works with the youth homeless population, and he wants to make sure that his youth and other youth of Glenn County are connected. And I also listed some of our community partners. You spoke about these youth going to work at nonprofits, but these are some of the places that we have placed them, and also some partners that we have worked with as far as workforce development is concerned.
So First Baptist got some of these kids?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Are you familiar with First Baptist?
No, but I know a couple people who are.
Okay. All right.
I'm messing with my
Okay. So yes. So this is your team here in Glenn County. We have Ms. Lee, who is the program manager, Ms. Brown, who gave the tour to Ms. Rhonda, Ms. Gardner, who just joined probably about 6 months ago, and Ms. Hannon, and also Ms. Hart. So you have a team here on the ground that is making sure that people know about WorkSource Coastal. And yes, you will run into people that say, oh, I don't know nothing about WorkSource Coastal and I don't know anything about what they do. So that's their job, to make sure that people know how to access our services. Any questions?
I think we asked some as we went along. I appreciate your
Yes, sir.
presentation today.
Yes, sir.
I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
Do you know what the average wage is for a one-family income in Glenn County? You said the living wage was $21.16. Do you have any information with you on what the average wage is for that one-person family?
I do not, but I can find out for you. I sure can.
Commissioners, anything else? Thank you so much. Mr.
Thank you, and please spread the word. And I would like to talk to you, sir, one-on-one, to let you know how we can also help local government.
All right.
All right?
Thank you so much. Thank you. Rhonda, can you give my information to her, please? All right. All right. Item number 3 today is to receive a presentation from John Hunter, Director of Planning Development and Codes for the City of Brunswick, regarding updates and progress on our land bank activities. Mr. Hunter, we thank you for being with us today. And Mr. Gentry, do you have remarks?
Just briefly, Mr. Chairman, you had asked just get an update from the land bank, and Mr. Hunter is filling in for the director there. So thank you, Mr. Hunter, for being here.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, Chairman Neal and Commissioners. And need just a moment for the presentation to get loaded.
step down.
Might be time for recess, you reckon?
Yeah, it might be.
Which it says he steps out of the room for 10 seconds and the whole thing falls apart. So it's,
Well, that's the curse of technology today.
yeah,
Isn't it?
that's right.
All righty. Well, I do appreciate the opportunity to provide an update to you on the land bank and its activities over the last year. For those of you who may not know, the land bank was established in late 2016 by an agreement between the county, the city, and the school board. It's governed by a board of directors. 2 of them sit on your board, Commissioner Booker and Commissioner Rafalski. We also have a citizen appointed by the county. There are 3 members appointed by the city, which includes 2 city commissioners and an appointed citizen, and there's a representative of the school board. Up until recently, the land bank administration has been run by city employees.
John, there's some water right behind you there that they brought in if you need it.
I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So previously, as I was saying, city staff filled most of the roles. That was myself, Brian Corey, the city attorney, did kind of the day-to-day and bouncing around as we wear many hats. But the land bank is designed to deal with abandoned and distressed properties throughout the county. And it's given certain powers that only land banks within Georgia have. They're given the power to extinguish delinquent taxes. They can extinguish liens. They can work through intergovernmental agreements to buy and sell properties with more flexibility than many government agencies are given. Our land bank focuses on some particular things, underutilized properties. And when we say that, we're looking at abandoned properties, tax delinquent properties, and foreclosed properties. About a year ago, a little over a year ago, the Land Bank Board decided that we needed to look a little bit more closely at how we were functioning and needed to make some key strategic decisions moving forward. We had received funding previously from the city and the county as kind of seed monies, but we hadn't really advanced very far. We'd sold a couple of tax deeds. We had sold one dilapidated property that had resulted in the construction of 2 new houses, but we felt like there was an opportunity to do more. So the Land Bank brought in a consultant named Frank Alexander, who literally wrote the Land Bank law for the state of Georgia. And he helped advise us on how to better prioritize our acquisition of properties moving forward. Really encouraged us to look at ways to establish a full-time staff member, and helped us establishing a goal of how many properties to work through within the next year, as well as redefining some of our policies so that they were more closely aligned with the needs in the city and the county. One of the things in particular that stuck out with that was that we needed to be closely aligned with organizations that were working on creating opportunities for affordable housing within the community. The timing for that wound up being very good. As y'all may know, the city worked over the last year to establish a new housing program, set aside $2.5 million in seed money to start acquiring properties, rehabilitating them, and making them available for affordable housing. So as the Land Bank worked over the course of the last year, those strategies were in mind. One of the key things is that we did, after we got through our policy work, we did hire our first staff member. Taylor Ritz began with us in January, and she did a great job of leading us over the last few months. Unfortunately, she's out on leave right now, which is why I'm here. But what she has been helping with particularly is helping us identify partnership organizations that we can work with. One of those, as I mentioned, is the City Housing Program. She has also met with the Brunswick Housing Authority. They have asked for some particular properties for us to work on for them. And we're also working closely with Habitat as they are getting close to, over the next couple of years, wrapping up their Century Place development. They're looking for other opportunities to acquire property and start developing more housing within the community. So over the last few years, we have been successful at acquiring a handful of properties. Some of those were tax deeds that were transferred from the county to us. We had a property donated to the land bank that was sold for the redevelopment of 3 houses. Earlier this year, we sold 1315 Union Street for rehabilitation. That's a substantial historic home that had been abandoned for over, well, at this point, about 25 years. And they'll be filing for permits within the next few weeks. And we approved an intergovernmental agreement with the city so that the city is handling the HR and administrative related services for the land bank. So the city is providing some substantial support for the land bank. And currently, we are working on acquiring 7 properties via the in-rem foreclosure process. That's a legal process that allows us through the courts to be able to acquire tax delinquent and tax deeded properties to be able to clean up the titles and get them out for sale. All of those properties have been at the request of partner agencies, the Housing Authority, the Board of Education, and the City Housing Program. Those properties would lead to cleaning up a couple of properties adjacent to Glen Academy, the production of new single-family housing for the Housing Authority, and housing rehab and sale by the City Housing Program. Some of the work that's been done in the past, this is just a good example. This was a dilapidated structure on Niles Avenue that was donated to the land bank. It actually had 2 dilapidated structures. Those were demolished. 2 new houses have been built on those so far, and with the possibility of a third. So you can directly see, just as an example, what that does to the tax base. The taxes in 2021 were $84 on the dilapidated structure. And that was to the county. Sorry, that was to the city. The city taxes the following year for that property for 22 and 23 rose significantly. So the work that the land bank can do, besides the direct impact of dealing with blight and providing new affordable housing, does have a major impact on our tax base within the city and the county. So that's just a quick summary of the things we were working on. Commissioner Booker and Commissioner Wolfowski are with us monthly, and I know that they have contributed greatly to the work over the last couple of years. And I'm happy to answer any specific questions that you have. I know we do have a couple of items that have been requested of the county recently. I know we have a tax deed that we've requested, along with we have made a request for inclusion in your budget this year. We made a similar request to the city as well. And, we appreciate y'all's support as we work to improve conditions around the community. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Any questions?
Yeah, I've got one. How many properties this year on y'all's radar, so to speak? How many?
How many are on our radar?
Yeah.
On our radar, we've got well over 200 properties on our radar. We've done some extensive data crunching on vacant lots, dilapidated structures, tax deeded, tax delinquent properties. We have been trying to line that up primarily with the city's housing program, which that's focusing on the Newtown area, which is north of Gloucester up to 2nd Street between MLK and Newcastle Street. And so that's a primary focus area for the housing program. We're trying to marry that up and look for opportunities where there are properties that might be available for the land bank to acquire that they could then utilize.
Bo, could I jump in on
Yes,
that
sir.
question?
Yeah.
Then, what do you think, how many properties could you handle in a year? What are you structured to?
So-
Obviously, you can't do 200.
Yeah,
so-
that's always been kind of the $1 million question for us. And
Do
frank-
you have a 10-cent answer?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this year, right now, as I said, right now we're cycling through 7 properties that we're working on acquiring, 7. And we have uses for those. One of the things that we have to keep in mind is that we need an end user for these properties, and they need to be very specific. We want this to be beneficial primarily for either governmental uses or for affordable housing opportunities. We don't want, at least at this point, want to make things available to property speculation and flipping, because we know we have such a great need for affordable housing and workforce housing. I think as we're at capacity, I think we could easily be working eventually into 20, 25 properties a year, maybe more. That's it all just depends on the economy of scale and whether or not we're able to successfully get those into the hands of people that can help produce and meet the needs. Because what we are not, what the land bank is not, is in the business of housing development. We don't need to be. There are plenty of others who can do it out there more efficiently than we could. So being able to match up with those partners, like I said, with already a number of identified partners.
Have
it's
y'all
good.
worked on a working model of how you want to execute this? And is that something that could be shared with the county so that we could see the buy-in?
I'd say probably one of the best models to look at, and I'll forward y'all if y'all hadn't already seen it, is the housing study that the city did this past year, and the housing program that we've established, as well as the. Unfortunately, we did apply for a CHIP application through DCA that we were not awarded, but that shows a pro forma of working through roughly 10 houses a year. What if we were able to acquire via the land bank, moving those through, what those costs would be, how that money could be reinvested into the housing program upon sale, and move that forward over a 5-year process that would address rehabilitation of 40 vacant properties just through that singular program. So I'm happy to provide all of that to you.
Yeah, that was kind of my thoughts there. I was wondering what approach y'all, is it getting along, the low-hanging fruit
Yeah.
type approach, or the more beneficial money-wise, it may take a little bit longer?
Well, there's the lowest hanging fruit in my mind within the city and the county are vacant lots. Those things that are truly abandoned vacant lots where we know no taxes have been paid in a decade, and they've got title problems, they've got tax issues, they've got old liens on them. Taking those through, cleaning up those title issues, and getting those out to a partner so they can build is the most efficient way. Rehabbing things, you always, and I say this as a preservationist at heart, they're the scarier things because you never know what you're going to find when you start picking apart an old house, especially one that's been abandoned for a few years.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners?
I just want to comment that any money that we invest, the city or the county, we get back. So it's really not at risk. It's just when is the question.
A win 3 times. One of the other hats I wear is overseeing our code enforcement staff, and vacant lots and dilapidated properties is time and expense that we have to deal with on a regular basis, whether it's just going through the process to get a court order to clean it up or tear it down. When you've got a vacant lot, it's a continual maintenance issue that we have to go back, depending on where it is, every couple of years, get another order to cut the grass, clean it up. The more that we can do to activate these vacant properties, it's more eyes in our neighborhood, it's more investment in our community, and frankly, to our governmental entities, it's more taxes for all 3. So Commissioner Booker's exactly right, that investment gets spent 2 or 3 times over as it comes back into us.
All right. Question?
I know our tax commissioner's in the room here today, and I know you deal with the delinquent property taxes on behalf of Glenn County. Do you want to add anything to this today, sir?
Of course, we've been working with the county attorney's office on the 320 parcels, and the last part of those will be coming up in a couple of weeks before the commission to approve the last list of those. That was the Liberty Harbor first phase with the 90 lots there, and now there's about 216 parcels. Of those. Of the 320 total, 216 of those parcels are in the city. So that'll be good news, you know, because we're selling 100% of what we're putting up for sale. So that's 216 parcels. And then we located, with the commission allowing us to get new software, thank you very much. After 22 years, it was time to replace it. We discovered 198 more parcels that were labeled troubled. And so we're working with property appraisal and some other county departments to try to get those cleaned up and back on the digest, so we'll initiate the sale of those. That was another 81 parcels of land in the city, 198 total parcels, but 81 in the city. So that's well over 300 parcels and within a 12-month period that have been just out there that will be back on the tax rolls, and there'll be an owner, and so that's good news. And then with June and September, we have focused on the city, and we're doing it by districts now, by taxing districts on delinquent taxes. And so by September, 100% of county taxes due that are in the city properties will be either paid or the property will be sold. So it's been will be a very productive year for Glenn County and the city of Brunswick about getting lots and lots of properties to help them accomplish and the city accomplish their mission of revitalizing their city. That's just some notes I had taken while you were talking. Any question?
Who normally buy these when you put them up like that, Commissioner?
I don't really pay attention a lot to who the buyers are, but we'll have anywhere from 20 to 80 bidders, and we have about 10 or 12 buyers that are consistent. There are some local people here that that seem to buy delinquent properties. I can't name one of them, quite frankly, but I can provide you the list of all of our buyers of all of our sales.
Right. No, that's fine. I guess one of the things I want to point out is that the land bank has another mission and just getting it back on the tax rolls. And because once you sell it, like you say, you don't pay attention to who the bidders are. Your thing is you want to get it bought, so then it's owned by somebody, and so they start back paying taxes on it, right?
Yes.
And so, but the city's goals are to create more home ownership. Often these bidders are folk who are in a business of flipping houses. They are building their rental property portfolio, and that's not the whole goal of what the city really needs. The city needs more home ownership, and that's part of the goal, a major part of the goal for the Land Bank Authority, and it has to be affordable. Your role is doing what you just said. You don't know if it's going to be affordable or not. And that's not something that you should be concerned with.
Right, exactly.
Your goal is to get it
high bidder.
High bidder, right. And so I just want to make sure that we understand, because that doesn't impact the poverty rate in the city. If we have way more rental property, most of the time it's not going to be affordable, especially in this marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't increase without the kind of partners that John just talked about. We won't really significantly increase homeowners. But I was just using that as an example.
Sure.
Thank you, Jeff.
And if you want to, any of the properties on the list, if the county commission wants to give those to the property, to the land bank, and forgive the taxes, just tell me, and of course I'll remove them off the list, and you can give them to them. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, anything else?
Unless you have any other questions.
No, thank you so much for coming today and spending some time with us.
Anytime.
Item number 4 today is a presentation and discussion on the proposed GB 911 tiered pay and incentive plan. And this documentation was uploaded 5/20. So, Ms. Richardson? we'll turn the floor over to you.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. Everybody hear me okay? I'm pretty loud, so. I'm Kara Richardson. I'm the director of the Glen Brunswick 911 Center, and I'm here to present a tiered pay plan proposal to help remedy our issue with retention and also address any compression in the future when we do start retaining our staff again. Okay, here's some of our accomplishments over the last 7 years. One that I want to highlight, well, there's two that I want to highlight, but emergency medical dispatch is one of our major ones. This not only meets the new state requirement, which where all PSAPs or emergency communication centers are required to give telephone CPR instruction while responders are en route. So we do meet that requirement and have for some time since 2018, as a matter of fact. But we've surpassed that in that we can give instruction on controlling a bleed. We've done a lot as far as Heimlich maneuvers. We've even helped deliver 5 babies over the since 2019. One of our most noteworthy accomplishments is our 9.9 out of 10 scores, and that helped us secure our ISO ratings in the city of 1 and in the county at 2. So great ratings there. Okay. So not only did our agency field over 80,000 911 calls in 2023, but we also took an additional 60,000 non-emergency calls and made nearly 45,000 outbound calls. All of this is done while providing instruction and updates to responding units and our citizens on the phone with us. Okay, so our personnel have to be well trained to field emergency calls, dispatch units, and provide constant updates to both callers and units. And most of our folks are on the phone while they're also talking on the radio. They do some incredible stuff in there, and I encourage all of you to come visit sometime and just sit down with some of our people. Okay, so I believe I skipped over one. My apologies. I did. So a trainee just coming in with no experience in 911 or police or fire communications is going to cost about $32,000 for 40 weeks. They also require 2-3 certifications in the first year. That's about $2,500, and then we have 60 continued education units that we have to make sure they get to keep these certifications. We're in compliance with state law as well. So essentially you can see that by increasing retention, we would be getting a better return on investment and providing an enhanced safety and security to our citizens and our responders that are on the road. So, from 2017 to 2019, and I'm using those numbers because I went back into administration in 2017, and we made some changes back there, and we got our attrition down quite a bit. The national average at that time was about 19 to 21%, which is, I know that's horrendous. It's now quite a bit more now. It's almost at 50% across the nation in 911 public safety dispatching. So we did have it down when COVID hit. It affected us as it did across all public safety agencies and probably all private sector as well. We just not bounced back from it. We did lose 2 of our employees in 2021. We saw a substantial loss in employees after that. A lot of folks did not want to stay around after that. So we're still trying to bounce back from that. Okay. We just to mention some of the folks we have lost some folks to other county entities. We've lost to the district attorney's office, the sheriff's office. We've lost some folks to Glen County Police Department. They've gone on to become officers. We've also lost to Brunswick Police Department. So not everybody that leaves is technically a loss. It's just a loss for our department. I keep skipping over. So just to show you what occurred last year, we lost 11 people last year to resignations. At least 2 of those were medical related. We had a couple of folks go to the SO, one went to state court, one went to the district attorney's office. We had a couple of people that just didn't come back after a particularly hard call that they had to take. They just didn't return, and that is something that's very real in our career field. And the other folks that left for jobs that paid a little bit more and had some incentives. Okay, you can see our current staffing on the floor. The majority of our folks have been here less than 2 years that are on the floor. Our supervisors have been here a little bit longer, but in those positions for less than 3 years. So I have conducted some informal meetings with some of our folks that are leaving. We're changing the way we're doing business, and we're going to have some formal out processing meetings when our personnel go elsewhere. But in these informal meetings and from feedback from human resources, we're seeing, excuse me, my apologies. Yeah, here we go. The lack of incentives for public safety work, the long hours, the compassion fatigue, vicarious trauma. People are not always very pleasant when they call us, obviously. It's usually on the worst day of their life. We understand that, but it can be taxing. So these are some of the reasons that some of our folks have left. And we do want to iterate that while we do have the resources available for those particularly troublesome calls, and we can pull folks off their console and maybe get them a police chaplain or a member of a CISM or CIT team. By nature of the job, they're going to have to eventually, and sooner rather than later, go back to that console. It's just our job. And I have worked consoles where I've taken 7, 8, 9 very, very tragic calls in a row, and it's just the nature of the job itself. So I wanted to show a comparison of 2 of our coastal agencies. One is quite a bit larger, Savannah Chatham, and then we have Camden, which is substantially smaller. They're making more than us, and they're either making more than us and or receiving incentives that we are not. The same holds true with some of our comparable centers across the state. Many of them are offering more pay and incentives. And honestly, they're still struggling to fill seats just with that, and they're going back to the drawing board and asking for more to keep their folks in place. So a little bit about our agency. I don't know if everyone is familiar with it, but there was an MOU that was built between the city and the county in 2001. And the GB 911 Center was formed, and the oversight committee is known as the Joint Public Safety Communications Department, or the JPSCD. And on the JPSCD, we have the sheriff. He's a part of the oversight committee, along with the city and county manager, the city and county police chiefs, and the city and county fire chiefs. Underneath that oversight committee is the director, the deputy director, 3 coordinators, 4 supervisors, and 28 communications officers. So what we're suggesting to occur is to bump the starting wage, excuse me, I apologize, from $40,560 to $43,000. That's a little bit closer to the median wage, which is $45,000 in the state of Georgia for a communications officer, but we're also going to ask for some incentives as well. So what's going to happen here is it'll go to a tiered system, much like Chief Ebner put together initially, and the majority of public safety has followed suit. We think that it's smart, and it'll help in retention, and it'll help with further growth, and it will obviously compression was an issue when we were retaining staff, so we don't want that to occur again. So we think that this is perfect. The stipulations would be they'd have to have meeting the standards on their evaluations. and no major disciplinary action. So on the communications officer, every 2 years, it would get a 3% increase. So bumping the bottom salary and giving them a 3-year, correction, yes, no, a 3% increase every 2 years. Okay. All right, the supervisors and coordinators is going to be, they're going to start 3% above the highest tier of a communications officer. And the same stipulations, but they won't go for 20 years, it'll go for 10 years. And they have the same stipulations, they have to meet the standards, they have to not have major disciplinary action in order to receive that bump. The deputy director is going to be 5% above the highest tier for the communications, correction, the communications supervisors and the coordinators. Same stipulation, same thing, 10 years worth of bumps at 2-year intervals. No. We're also asking for the same incentives that have been given across the board for public safety in Glenn County. We're also asking for a shift differential of $1 per hour between hours of 9 and 6 a.m. The total cost to the county, the total cost to the county for your annual ongoing wage increase, if we stay at these percentages, which these are highly likely to change soon, is $122,883 for the contribution here. And the longevity and education bonuses will be an additional $21,719. So just to summarize, we believe the idea of the tiered system for the public safety across the board will greatly assist in retention efforts and create a stronger and safer Glenn County. I'd like to thank Chief Ebner and Mrs. Munson for their assistance and insight, the JPSCD for their support and encouragement for the men and women here, the Glen Brunswick 911 Center, and we'd like to thank the Board of Commissioners for your time and consideration. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. As you know, we don't vote at the work session. But,
Yes, sir.
But this information was valuable to us. We certainly want to say while you have several from your department here with you, we thank you from the bottom of our heart from what you do for Glenn County in your response. We will, Commissioners, are there any questions?
I will say I have been in there a few times. It's dark and they sit there at that console. I really don't know how they do it.
Yeah, my concern was, are there, like, counseling available?
Yeah.
Or is there,
Yes, sir. So the state has a peer support program. They have, they formed I believe it was in 2016, GEMA formed JICA, which they've given us a lot of resources, which is the Georgia Emergency Communications Authority. But guess what happened with COVID? We didn't have anybody representing this area for quite some time. Now we have her. Her name is Watiki Crawford. She came from Tift County, and she's already stopped by to see if there's any resources that we need from the state that can help. And these are all folks that come from this specific career field. So she's sat on a seat. She knows what it's like and knows what kind of resources to get us. But Pastor Tim Brown and a handful of his folks, they come by and see us all the time. And if we call them because we need them, somebody is having a hard time processing a call, they do come out. And then we always mention the EAP and things of that nature. They do take some pretty rough calls. Yes, sir.
My concern was, Commissioner Booker, do we have somebody they can talk to if they need to?
Yes, sir.
That Pastor Tim is available and other folks. That's good to hear.
Yes, sir. Okay.
All right. Anything else?
Email me your presentation.
I'm sorry, sir?
Can you email me your
Yes, sir.
presentation?
Yes, sir. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank y'all for being here with us today. All right, gentlemen. That will conclude our regular schedule for today, our agenda, and Mr. Mumford had to step out, so I'm assuming we have no executive session. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
All right. Motion and second to adjourn. We stand adjourned. Thank you.